Title: He took a job, then found his daughter's long-lost aunt. He had nothing left, no wife, no job, no peace. Just a little girl with tired eyes and an oversized backpack, standing beside him at a gas station, asking for $1 more to get to school. The early morning frost bit through his worn-out jacket as he scraped together quarters from the cup holder of his beat-up truck, praying the engine would start. His name was Marcus Reed, and he wasn't supposed to end up like this, a single father sleeping in parking lots, chasing day jobs, trying to convince a 7-year-old that cold cereal in the back seat was a picnic adventure. But life didn't ask for permission before taking everything. Asterisk: If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that touch the soul, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to USA Soul Stories. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to light. Asterisk: 3 years ago, Marcus lost his wife, Lily, in a car accident that tore his world in half. She was his center, his calm, his compass. After her funeral, he spiraled. First came the drinking, then the job loss, and then the foreclosure. But there was one thing he didn't lose: his daughter, Emma. Every time she slipped her small hand into his, he was reminded that he had something left to fight for. He tried to be strong for her, but some days, the strength didn't come. Asterisk: That morning, with gas running low and food even lower, Marcus saw a flyer taped to the gas station window. Caretaker needed for elderly woman. Room and board included. Immediate start. He took a photo of the number, glanced at Emma sleeping in the back seat with a teddy bear clutched to her chest, and called. Asterisk: By evening, they arrived at an old, ivy-covered house nestled in a quiet neighborhood just outside of Oak Ridge. A woman in her 70s answered the door with a cautious gaze and a cane. Her name was Margaret, and she didn't smile when she looked at Marcus. But something softened in her expression when she saw Emma, shyly hiding behind her father's leg. "You'll have to cook, clean, and drive me to appointments," she said sharply. "No drugs, no trouble. And she," Margaret pointed to Emma, "needs to be quiet during the day." Marcus agreed to everything. The house was big, dusty, filled with old books and older furniture. Margaret lived alone, widowed for over a decade. She had a room ready for Marcus and a small adjoining one for Emma. For the first time in months, Emma slept in a real bed. And for the first time in forever, Marcus didn't wake up panicked. Asterisk: At first, it was just a job. Marcus vacuumed, fixed leaky pipes, helped Margaret to the car, and cooked simple meals. He didn't talk much, and neither did she. But every now and then, Margaret would stare at Emma with this strange, unreadable expression, almost as if she saw something hauntingly familiar in her face. Asterisk: One rainy afternoon, Emma was drawing at the kitchen table. Margaret walked in, paused mid-step, and stared at the little girl's picture. It was of a woman with curly hair, holding hands with a child in a sunflower field. "That's Mommy," Emma said. "She used to take me to a place like that before. She, you know." Asterisk: Margaret's cane trembled slightly. "What was her name, sweetheart?" Asterisk: "Lily," Emma replied. "Lily Morgan Reed." The coffee mug Margaret was holding slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. That night, she didn't come down for dinner. The next morning, she sat at the kitchen table, an old photo album open beside her. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. She looked up at Marcus, eyes glossy. "Lily Morgan was my niece," she whispered. "My brother's daughter. I haven't seen her since she was 17. Asterisk: Marcus froze, unsure what to believe. Margaret reached into the album and pulled out a photo Lily at 18, grinning, wild curls flying in the wind, standing next to a sign that read Sunflower Hill Farm. It was the same place Emma had drawn from memory. Asterisk: I lost touch with her after a terrible family fight. My brother died before I could make amends. I didn't know she'd passed, or that she had a child. Her voice cracked. You married her? Asterisk Marcus nodded slowly, heart pounding. All this time, the job he'd taken out of desperation had unknowingly led him back to a missing piece of Lily's past. Asterisk Margaret began to weep quietly. God sent you both to me. Asterisk the weeks that followed were a slow unraveling of grief, memories, and healing. Margaret softened. She began helping Emma with homework, baking little treats, and telling stories of Lily's childhood stories Marcus had never heard. Stories that filled the holes left behind by tragedy. Asterisk Marcus found steady work nearby, while Margaret watched Emma during the day. Emma began to smile more, and even Marcus started laughing again. The house that once felt like a cold arrangement started to feel like home. Asterisk, but one evening, Margaret collapsed in the living room. The ambulance came quickly, and Marcus rode with her to the hospital. She had suffered a mild stroke. After a few days, she was stable but fragile. Marcus sat by her bedside every night. Asterisk one night, Margaret took Marcus's hand and said, "When I'm gone, promise me something. Don't let Emma forget her mother, or her roots. I've changed my will. This house is for her now, for both of you. Family should never be lost again." Asterisk tears welled in Marcus's eyes. You're not going anywhere, Margaret. Asterisk, she smiled faintly. Whether I do or don't, you brought my niece back to me. You gave me another chance. Asterisk Margaret recovered slowly, and while she now needed more assistance, the bond between her and Emma deepened into something that felt beautifully unbreakable. Asterisk one day, Emma called her Aunt Maggie. It was accidental at first, but Margaret smiled wider than she had in years. I think I like that, she whispered. Asterisk they planted sunflowers in the backyard that spring, just like Lily had once dreamed of. Emma danced among them, her laughter echoing through the house. Asterisk Marcus stood back, watching, his eyes full. Asterisk, sometimes the universe doesn't answer your prayers right away. Sometimes it takes you to rock bottom, strips away everything, only to rebuild you in the most unexpected places. Marcus thought he had taken a job out of survival, but it turned out to be the doorway to family, forgiveness, and a second chance at life. Asterisk, if this story touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to USA Soul Stories. Your support keeps these real, human stories alive. Asterisk special request. Tell us in the comments, do you believe in fate? Or was this just a beautiful coincidence? Certainly. Here's a continuation of the story to further develop the emotional arc. Add more suspense and realism, and deepen the characters, keeping the same tone and cinematic pacing. The full version continues below, bringing the overall narrative closer to your 6,000-word YouTube video length. Margaret's recovery wasn't smooth. There were days she forgot what she had just said, and nights when she'd wake up in confusion, calling out for her late husband or thinking. Emma was Lily. Marcus stayed patient, even when it was hard. He read up on stroke care, learned how to manage her medications, and started preparing softer meals she could chew more easily. It was difficult, but he did it for Emma, for Margaret, and for the memory of the woman he'd loved and lost. Asterisk 1. Evening. While cleaning out the attic to install an air conditioning unit, Marcus found an old chest covered in dust and sealed with a tarnished brass latch. Inside were dozens of letters. Yellowed with age, some were opened, others never sent. They were all addressed to Lily. Asterisk. He brought them downstairs. Margaret took one look and pressed her hand to her mouth. I wrote those after our fight. I didn't know where to send them. I didn't even know if she'd read them. Asterisk Marcus opened the first envelope. My dearest Lily, I was wrong. I was harsh. I judged you when I should have embraced you. If you ever read this, I want you to know I never stopped loving you. Asterisk, they sat together late into the night, reading them one by one. Some were tearful apologies. Others were full of updates about Margaret's life, new recipes she'd tried, memories of Lily's childhood, and regrets that multiplied with each passing year. Asterisk, Marcus quietly folded the letters back into the chest and said, "When Emma is old enough, I'll give these to her. She deserves to know how much she was wanted." Even when the words never reached her. Margaret nodded, her hand trembling as she squeezed his. That summer, life seemed to breathe back into the house. The scent of fresh bread floated from the kitchen. The walls, once quiet, now echoed with Emma's singing, her little feet dancing across hardwood floors. Marcus fixed the porch swing. Margaret started teaching Emma how to knit. It was simple, slow, and full of small joys until another arrived. This one wasn't from the past. It was from a state social worker. Apparently, someone had reported an unusual guardianship situation. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face as he read the words. "We will be visiting the residents to assess the living conditions and the suitability of child care." Asterisk, he knew what this meant. One wrong impression, one misplaced judgment, and they could take Emma away. Asterisk, panic set in. He didn't have full legal custody. When Lily died, there had been no will, no paperwork. He had assumed it wouldn't matter. He was her father. But the system didn't always care about assumptions. Asterisk, the visit was scheduled for Friday. Asterisk, Marcus spent the next 3 days in a storm of preparation. He deep cleaned the entire house, organized Emma's schoolwork, and gathered every document he had: birth certificate, school records, even Lily's old ID. Margaret called in a favor from her late husband's law firm and got a junior attorney to help prepare temporary custody affidavits. Asterisk, the social worker arrived in the early morning, clipboard in hand, eyes alert and unreadable. She interviewed Marcus, then Margaret, then Emma. Asterisk, Emma sat upright in a floral dress Margaret had picked out. When asked if she felt safe and happy, she simply said, "I have my daddy and Aunt Maggie. That's all I need." Asterisk, the woman nodded, closed her notebook, and left. For 3 days, they heard nothing. The silence was unbearable. Asterisk, then the letter arrived. Asterisk, approved. No further action needed. Asterisk, Marcus collapsed onto the couch, relief pouring out of him in quiet sobs. Margaret handed him a glass of lemonade and said, "You did it. You held on." But Marcus knew they had done it together. Later that evening, under the same porch swing he'd repaired, Margaret sat beside him and spoke softly. "Marcus, I want you to adopt me." Asterisk, he blinked, confused. "What?" Asterisk, she chuckled. "I mean legally, as a dependent. I want this house to reflect the truth, that we're a family now, not by blood, but by choice. You and Emma gave me something no money could ever buy: peace. And I want you protected. If anything happens to me, I want it to be clear. This home is yours." Marcus nodded, unable to speak. That fall, they signed the papers. Marcus was officially her guardian and heir. But more importantly, they were finally, undeniably a family. Asterisk, life didn't stop throwing curveballs. Margaret's health continued to decline, and Marcus had to juggle caregiving with work, school drop-offs, and late-night fevers. But love made it bearable. Real love, not the kind made of flowers and fairy tales, but the kind made of coffee at 3 a.m., rides to the A, and bedtime stories told with a tired smile. Asterisk, one snowy December night, as they decorated the Christmas tree with Emma's handmade paper stars, Margaret asked Emma what she wanted to be when she grew up. Asterisk, "I want to be someone who finds lost people," she said brightly. "Like Daddy found you." Asterisk Margaret's eyes welled up, and she whispered, "You already are." Asterisk that Christmas, they sat around a small table, holding hands and remembering Lily. They lit a candle for her and placed her favorite flower, sunflowers, beside it. The warmth in that room had nothing to do with the fireplace. It came from knowing they had rescued each other. If this story reached into your heart and reminded you of the power of unexpected connections, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to USA Soul Stories. Your support brings these emotional journeys to life. Asterisk special request. Have you ever found family in someone unexpected? Tell us in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. Would you like this turned into a full YouTube script with scene directions and background music cues next?